Well, good morning, Empowered Soul Network. Well, it's an amazing day today. All kinds of stuff going on in our environment. Big giant move with our election, all kinds of things are happening. I hope, regardless of where you fall with all that, you just stay safe, have fun today, be relaxed, so that you can keep that positive energy moving forward and brightening up all of our days today. I have got a wonderful guest and Empowered Soul Network today. He is a peak performance coach. And I love it when I've shared with you before. I love it when he talks about that. I think you're going to enjoy hearing from Anthony Palacin. He's calling you from where? Remind me where you're calling him from, Anthony?
I'm in the UK.
In the UK, there we go. So he's already in our future. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about what's coming in our future. So Anthony, welcome to Empowered Soul Network.
Thank you.
Yes, so tell us a little bit about Anthony and being a peak performance coach. What is that all about?
It's about reaching your highest potential, really, as a human being, as yeah, getting as fast and as efficiently towards your goals as possible. But I like to bring this particular aspect to it without forcing things, without burning out, without pushing too hard. I kind of take a laid back approach to peak performance that is more about going into the root cause of issues and learning just optimal ways of being rather than kind of pushing hard, which is a mentality that I'm actually quite against. That can appear in the peak performance industry.
So if a client wants to come to you to begin their rise into peak performance, how do you start somebody out, Anthony?
I start someone out with an overall assessment of where they're at. I have a proven process, which is based on an evaluation that I then look at in details, and we discuss that. Yeah.
So if I were to take that evaluation, for example, what were some of the things that are questions? What's an example of where that might take me?
Yeah, so you'll have a comprehensive kind of two-part view of your current skills and mentalities about things. So we'll evaluate your motivation, we'll evaluate your self-belief and mindset. We'll also evaluate some of the lifestyle biology related things like your sleep, hydration, exercise, and we'll also evaluate a bunch of productivity metrics like how much are you single tasking versus multitasking, how good are you at focus, how good are your boundaries, and all this sort of thing.
Well, that sounds like one of those three-dimensional MRIs for the soul. Where it's going to be comprehensive all over the place, up one side and down the other. Wow, that's a
Yeah,
holistic evaluation there. And what have
yeah,
you found in your clients even before they start, whether you're actually moving into the things, what's the response from people who've actually done that assessment?
it's really quite the breakthrough shift in and of itself because people don't necessarily see all of these aspects. Like it's really a three-dimensional, four-dimensional even scan of performance. And it might be obvious that everything relates to everything, but once you break it down into these categories, you have a much clearer idea of where your strengths are and what are the areas to improve. And even knowing the relative scores is a breakthrough in knowing what to focus on of the 10 things that need to improve. I can tell based on my experience which one will bring the most results in the least amount of time, which is the whole point of the process and the whole reason for me creating this methodology.
That could you break down because if people feel like they have to do it all at once, that could be overwhelming, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's another one of the pillars in my philosophy is being anti-overwhelm, anti-rushing, and just really doing things with a clean energy and in a most biologically adapted way.
Find that, Anthony, that there's a particular like demographic group, young, old, middle, whatever, moms, working people. What have you found are the people that seem to gravitate the most? I know you can help everybody, but what's that? What are the people you find go through the door the most?
So at the moment, it's a wide range, and it really depends on where people are at. But I think one of the easy splits that can be done is the passion and purpose driven people versus not so much. Like if you're an entrepreneur, typically I work with a lot of conscious entrepreneurs. They're very passionate about their work and they very much found a strong sense of purpose. So that's not an area that they need to improve. Instead, they need to work on their focus skills, which is where all the optimizations around productivity and neuroscience I can bring them. So that's one category of people. Another category is those who aren't so strong on the passion and purpose side, which is really related to motivation. And although these people might also benefit a lot from the productivity stuff, because the productivity can lead to finding passion and purpose a lot quicker, the most high leverage efficient way to really reach the highest performance is to focus on that passion and purpose piece of the puzzle first. Wow, there's a lot of P's in there.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, there you go. So what's so fascinating to me, Anthony, is hearing what people do and then finding out the backstory to that. What started that? What kicked that off? When you were a little kid, were you into that kind of peak performance kind of thing? You had to be the best soccer player. What was the motivation way back? What were your challenges back then?
Not at all, not at all. I landed in peak performance because of a mental health crisis and festivals and spirituality and finding a coaching specialization. But honestly, when I was a kid, I was the biggest procrastinator in the class, not at all concerned about focus. And I was kind of smart, so I would get a lot of things done really quickly at the last minute. But also, I was obese. I was, I was really in the bottom 25% of the class in terms of athletic performance. And that piece around health and the idea of improving my health and more easily getting into romantic relationships was the first trigger to my intentional self-development journey that eventually led me to the neuroscience of flow and peak performance.
Am I reading this right? That in order to get a good date, you had to shift some things around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did not have the confidence to approach people. I had a lot of desires, but I didn't know how to act on them. I had a lot of body shame. I had a lot of just perfectionism shame, kind of if I'm not the best person, then I'm not worthy of love and attention. And why would people pick me? All of these beliefs I had to shift, and some of them I'm still shifting. Even as a peak performer,
Sure.
self-identifying.
Just as a side note, I mean, I think that's very beautiful to express in a humble way that you're growing and learning as you grow. I mean, I do. I mean, been doing my work for decades and parallel verse to what you do. I still learn and grow. I'm still working on things. You know, there's nothing wrong with always aspiring to. That's what peak performance is all about. Is let's go to the next level, right?
Absolutely. And whatever your current level is, there is always a greater potential that you can reach. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think
Really
part of
is.
the journey of
Yeah.
life is to grow, is to take on new challenges, and is to feel better and live better and experience more.
So back in those days, as you were, what was the in the mindset? What was the shift that actually happened? Was it I don't want to be obese anymore, or I want to be lean, mean, and clean. You know, how was the thinking happening in there for you?
It really happened over a long time period in quantum leaps of shifts and different plateaus. So the first one was really about my health. And my health was strongly tied to my self-worth and relationships. Once I'd started getting into some relationships and got a little bit more confident in myself, my interests pivoted. I eventually got to a healthy weight. So I was like, I checked that box, even though I don't have the perfect body. Um, my life isn't as threatened as before in terms of health. So from that point, it was more of the passion and purpose. And for me, it was a music festival that really shifted my interests. Um, to create a life that I really loved living, that gave me the North Star of, okay, I want to create a life in which I'm doing more of that at the moment. And then came mental health and then spirituality.
So this is interesting for me because let's go to the weight for just a second. So when you begin to identify, I need to change my health, I need to shift the weight. What were some of those first steps that you took to take action on that? Did you go find a gym? Did you personal trainer? Did you adjust it? A couple steps there, could you help us with?
Yeah, yeah. At first, it was knowledge. Um, I was reading a bit more about diets. I was reading a bit more about exercising, how to do it better. I was trying to do more. Um, I think my perspective really shifted when my motivation went from extrinsic, which was more about the way I look in the world and having a physically appealing body. It went from that towards health. Yeah, at some point I hadn't made that shift. And that's really when I started going much deeper into diets, not just in theory, but actually implementing it. I realized like, oh, if I stay fat, then I'm probably losing 10 years of life potential. And I have a strong emotional component as a man. Uh, that as a child, I've never met my grandfathers. One of them died before I was born, and the other one died before I was 1 year old. So knowing that it's in my history, I don't want to be that grandfather that is not around for future grandkids. So I want to keep my health maximizing my longevity, but also my health span, not just lifespan, but the function of my brain and body over time. And yeah, it's just a bunch. The more and more pieces of the puzzle come together, the more the actions that are required become a no-brainer. Like everybody knows you have to eat healthy, move, drink a lot of clean water, minimize sugar and processed foods and all that. But the problem is implementation. So my philosophy has always been with more and the right knowledge, you can connect more of the dots, and that makes taking those actions more of a no-brainer.
And there's a whole lot of passion and purpose within what you said. You know, there's a desire there I want this. It's not even I don't want this, I want this. And the past, you know, the grandfathers, those are examples of things that I want to move further away from, and I want to go here. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot.
exactly.
Yeah,
We have to realize the long-term consequences of our actions, even if we are in denial today. You know, everything has a long-term cumulative effect.
yeah. It takes a while to build up a dis-ease, if you will, you know,
Yeah.
and so on. Not most of the time doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. And the other thing that I heard you say too, Anthony, is there's a whole lot of I just want to feel better. A piece of that, I want to feel better. I want to be able to walk and not have pain in my knees at the end of the mile. You know, it's that feeling of happiness and joy and so on, right? Was that a piece of what you were aspiring to as well?
Absolutely, yeah. It has always been there's always been a jealousy component in my drive for higher performance. It's like, okay, why is that guy getting the girls and I'm not? Well, I can see there's a lot of differences. I mean, our bodies are different, our confidence is different, da 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 da. But even um yeah, it's a motivating factor in one sense, but also in another sense, it's a healing kind of grounding ourselves that it is possible for you to achieve the change because fundamentally every single human being shares 99.9% of identical DNA. And so that really just creates the solid foundation of, well, if they can do it, why can't I? There's just a small little tiny journey or little tiny tweaks that I need to go through in order to become that kind of person that achieves the kind of things that I'm currently jealous of. Um, and yeah, it can be a strong motivating factor, but very grounding that it is absolutely possible.
I mean, that's beautiful. One of the things that's interesting to me, and I find this in different conversations with men and women, um, from your experience, you just kind of references really not a whole lot of difference in our DNA. So men to women, there's physiologically, there's not a whole lot of difference. We all have hearts, we all have lungs, you know, all that. We have eyes, you know, and so on. But in your work, Anthony, have you found like a fundamental core uniqueness in the women clients that come to you and the men clients that come to you? Is there like a space where they start from differently or they go to?
As far as men and women differences, not really. Not really, because I think performance as a topic is so big and so complex. I mean, the specific piece that I delve into more is productivity and mental health. Like that's my slice of the pie. But there's if there are other performance coaches that are more into the athletics. Other performance coaches are more into hormones. So whereas I'm more into neurotransmitters. And while there are some differences that are affected by hormones, like regards to the menstrual cycle, and there are some optimizations that can be made there as a difference between men and women. Other than that, I'd say the 98% is pretty much the same.
All about what's inside here, what's outside here, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us for just a moment about mental health. How would you define mental health, and what's the difference between mental health on the plus side and mental health on the not so plus side?
Wow, that's a big question.
Big question, yeah. Break it down for us.
Yeah, so I would define mental health as the the healthy, functional, optimal operation of the brain, mind, and psyche within the human mind and body units. Um, Now, I I widen the scope of mental health to include even things like confidence and joy. For me, it not being as confident, not being as happy or joyous in life is a mental health issue. It's not one that warrants the slap of a label of a disease, like, oh, you're under happiness disorder. But it could. And to be honest, I don't see any difference between uh, mental health disorders versus optimal self-actualized human beings, except a question of scope and degree. Like, I was diagnosed with bipolar. I take that not as a label for myself and my identity. I take that as a label that describes some of the symptoms that I've experienced for some time. And when we put it that way, it's like sickness. When you have a flu, your body deals with the flu symptoms, and then you no longer have the flu. You don't say I'm a flu prone person, or like I'm in the flu. Uh, maybe it's bad analogy, but my point is, I think the same for mental health. We can look at symptoms. Those symptoms can point us to what to do to get to the root cause, and then change that root cause to improve the symptoms at the fundamental level and deal with the problem forever.
Uh, a lot of beautiful, deep, complex, comprehensive energy and all of that.
Yeah,
I think the last time we talked, I asked you this two-part question as we begin to wrap up here. Let's see what your reflections are on today. If you were to give some words of advice to the Anthony of 10, 15, 20 years ago, what would you say to that Anthony of all those years ago?
I would say keep going. It's all gonna unfold in due time.
Okay. And then the other part to that, Anthony, is what would the Anthony of all those years ago say about the Anthony that he is observing of today?
I think he'd say he's really impressed, really confident that the path forward is a good one, and has a lot of faith that even the wildest dreams can become reality.
Well, I'm asking that question because it's such a unique way of someone saying, "Hey, this is where I am. This is what I've done for myself. This is this is how I've risen in my performance. I'm getting more beat." So, any last words of wisdom before we sign off here, Anthony? How can people reach out and get in touch with you, first of all?
I've got a website which is my last name, palacin.co.uk. Or you can connect with me on Facebook, send me a friend request, or comment under, yeah, wherever this is posted. And yeah, the other part of the question was
Words.
words of wisdom: dream big, stay consistent, keep going. You'll get there. You'll get there eventually. The puzzle might be more complex than you think it looks like, but the more you figure out the pieces, the closer you'll get to the big dreams.
There you go, Powered Soul Network. You have an opportunity to increase your empowerment. Connect up with Anthony Palacin. And Anthony, make sure you put how to reach you in the comments underneath this video, just like we always do. And I'll tag you and get a little description of our interview, the summary of it up there here shortly. So, and stick around for just a minute, and we'll regroup the interview after we sign off. All right, Empowered Soul, got another one coming up in a little over an hour, so stay tuned. Empowered Soul Network. Talk to you soon.